Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cloudcast episode 57. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis. I've just found a new Kickstarter I can back, guys.
Oh, God, we're only 5 seconds into the podcast.
If we just hit the record button.
Well, you know, I like to be on the pulse. I've already backed 2 in 2 days. This could make it 3 for 3.
Good grief.
Although, sadly, this is not live until March the 5th, so that gives me a bit of a gap. Some breathing room. It's by the same people who are doing Tang Garden, and it is called Iwari.
Ranu.
Yes.
We're going to need that sound effect, aren't we?
What's it about?
That is an excellent question, Mr. Cage. Do you have any other questions?
Let's not worry too much about what the game's like. It's just something that Andy needs to back. That'll do.
Let's not get bogged down in detail.
Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who.
Apparently, it is an abstract-like Euro game, so we're already onto a winner, where players represent different tribes to endeavour to define their identity by travelling and expanding settlements into 5 different types of regions in a strategy game of majorities. So there we go. That tells you next to nothing, but never mind. It does look quite pretty.
You don't get points for pretty. Those are the rules.
That is true. Don't get points for pretty.
Strike
but to be
that
fair,
comment from the records. Jury, if you would like to disregard that last statement.
But to be fair, Tang Garden did get points for being pretty, even though we dock things for being, you know, we don't score points for being pretty because Tang Garden is so pretty. And John looks very confused.
Just melted.
The point is, Tang Garden has to be that pretty to be noticed for being pretty, if that makes sense. That probably doesn't make sense. It makes sense to me. Carry on.
Doesn't make sense. Don't worry, listeners. You're not alone.
I don't know if it's just lack of sleep or you're talking absolute gibberish, Mr. Lewis.
Let's say
both. Little from column A, little from column
B. Yes.
And I am suffering from lack of sleep because we went to City of Games this last weekend.
Hooray!
We did. We're all suffering. Well, I'm definitely suffering lack of sleep. I don't know about you, Mr. Cage.
You guys need to man up. Sleep's for girls. Or people that have got memories. Actually, this might explain something. No, I feel all right.
Never sleeps.
Yeah, I'm used to a lack of sleep. I think that's it.
I'm not too bad now, but I was knackered on Monday. And not too great.
On Monday was useless.
Yeah.
On Monday, I was really fired up. I really wanted to play board games. I think.
Shame you're in work.
Yes, indeed. No, I think City of Games has rekindled some of the board gaming fire for me.
Hurrah! I have to admit, I did feel the same way on Monday. I was kind of ready to play another one, but then I got sort of home on Monday night and thought, no.
Tired now.
Yeah, I cabbaged on the sofa and didn't really move.
Nice.
Although I did actually, no, what did I do? I fitted a toilet seat. That was the extent of my Monday night activity.
Good to know.
Yep.
So, board games. It's enough of your DIY saga.
So I came back on Sunday night from City of Kings and found out that Suburbia was free on the iPad that very night. Ooh. So I downloaded it and played it on the train, and it's a nice game. Absolutely terrible tutorial.
Really?
Doesn't explain how the popularity system works. There's this thing where you've got a reputation, and a reputation affects affects population. So if your reputation's high, you get increased population into your city. If your reputation's low, you actually lose population from your city.
In Suburbia. Oh, God, yeah. Yes, you do. Okay. I take it you've played the board game?
No.
Have you not?
It's the first time I played it. No, the app version was the first time I played it, and the app didn't explain one of the most important rules. And they're playing going, why is everyone leaving my city? They're just leaving in droves.
Was it something I said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes.
Now I've got the board game, so that would make sense. Although, to be fair, I'd completely forgotten about that mechanic. But now you mention it, it does ring bells. It's quite a good game, actually.
We need to get a shift on, boys. We played about 50 games over the weekend, and we need to talk about them.
Yes.
We do, actually. We did play a lot.
I think we need to get the siren's call for the ferrets and head over to the news desk.
Here, ferrets. Here, boys. And girl. I don't know why there's only one girl, but we need to get onto the Diversity Act.
Sorted that, Cage. It's 2019.
Indeed.
This is supposed to be a hot news desk on the pulse, up to the minute with jazzy music and an attractive anchor.
Well, 1 out of 3 isn't bad.
I misheard that.
Yeah, sadly, we're
you?
lumbered with an anchor with a capital W.
Son of a... Right, so we talked about City of Games. While we're on the subject of conventions, Airecon is soon, and we are going to be there in droves. Well, I mean, all 3 of us are going to be there. In fact, we've been invited to do some sort of live show shenanigan-y kind of thing.
When will we be gracing the stage, Mr. Lewis? Because I believe you're in charge of all this.
In charge, yeah. I've been given this poison chalice. We will be on air, or a close approximation, at...
on Airecon.
On Airecon, yes, very good, John. At 4 p.m. on Saturday 9th, so the Saturday evening. I don't know which room we're in yet. Mark hasn't told me. 4 p.m. on the Saturday. Come and find us, and you will probably regret it.
No, you'll enjoy it. It'll be an amazing experience. Something to tell the grandkids.
You could tell them something, certainly, yes.
D&D, we like D&D. Stranger Things, we love that show. So what's better than those things separately? Those things together. Stranger Things D&D starter set, it will be available from the 1st of May. So it includes the characters that the characters in the show used, as in the dwarf and the, several levels deep.
Okay.
The characters that they used in the board game in the show will be available from the starter set as pre-rolled characters. And it'll also include a Stranger Things style adventure as well.
It comes with a miniature as well.
It does. That beastie with the flower for a face.
The Demogorgon.
Well, yeah, but I'm a little bit disappointed in this, because I was hoping you'd actually get the Demogorgon miniature that they use in the TV program, but it's not. It's the TV version of the Demogorgon, not the D&D version of the Demogorgon.
Yes, because Demogorgon's this massive, great tentacled affair, isn't it?
It's like this giant thing with 2 baboons' heads and tentacles for arms. It's like the main villain in If You Do the Out of the Abyss adventure. When I heard there was going to be a Demogorgon miniature in it, I thought it was going to be the classic 80s Demogorgon that he stamps on the table at the beginning of Stranger Things and goes, "The Demogorgon!" But it's not. It's the flower-headed thing from
the Upside Down.
Looks like a Venus flytrap with legs.
Which suggests it's going to be include the Upside Down in the D&D adventure or something along those lines, isn't it?
That was my impression.
My understanding as well, it's going to be a complete starter set similar to the starter set that's already out. So it's going to have the basic rules, this miniature, some dice, and some pre-rolled characters. So, I mean, if the adventure's any good, it's worth getting anyway, because Minds of Fandelvar, the adventure that comes in the current starter set, is actually a really good D&D adventure.
It is, I agree, having played through it.
Although half of this box set is superfluous, dice, new characters, and a basic rulebook. I might be worth getting just for the adventure, to be fair.
Agreed.
So that was the Stranger Things D&D starter set. And while we're on the subject of Stranger Things, there is a Kids on Bikes RPG supplement that's come out, which adds 20 new unique towns. So I haven't actually seen a great deal about it, but the more I read, the more enticing it sounds.
See, I got confused because when Kids on Bikes came out, it was about the same time Tales from the Loop came out. And they're both very similar. So Tales from the Loop was based on 80s kids finding scientific stuff like robots and generators and things like that. And it's all based on the art from this guy from Sweden, I think it is, which shows like kids firing lasers and firing like in jetpacks and things like that. Which was kind of, everyone said, oh, this is Stranger Things, the RPG. And then Kids on Bikes came out, which said, oh, this is heavily influenced by things like E.T., Super 8, and Stranger Things. It's like, my brain kind of didn't quite then separate the two. So
you've got Kids from the Loop or something like that?
Yeah.
Or Kids on...
I know I looked at like there was like some sample starter set out at some point, and I looked at some rules, and I can't remember which rules I looked at now.
Okay. Tales on Bikes.
Yes.
Between two castles of Ludwig or something. Looks interesting. If you're up for that original RPG, there's some new stuff to check out.
Cool.
There seems to be a lot of film-related games coming up. that we've seen in our ferreting around. There's a new semi-co-op Jaws-themed game.
Bit of a Spielberg theme going on here, since Stranger Things heavily rips off of things like the Goonies and E.T.
Yes.
Kids on Bikes blatantly rips off E.T. And now we are with Jaws.
There you go.
I saw this earlier today when you posted. I think I saw it actually last week. I saw it announced. I think it was last week. But I have to admit, I'm not entirely convinced by it. But carry on.
Yeah, well, from what I understand of it, I suspect it looks kind of limited because it's always going to be the same basic premise. So one player's the shark, and 1 to 3 players are Brody, Hooper, and Quint. So you start off, you're on Amity Island, and you've got the shark basically attacking swimmers and all that sort of stuff. And I get the impression you have to try and prevent them being attacked. You have to keep them safe. When you've done that part of the game, you flip the board over, and then you're inevitably on a boat. We're going to need the other side of the board. So you're on the sinking ship and trying to, well, probably not die, I imagine.
I've just got a picture of it up here, and it is the boat, and there are 8 tiles representing the different sections of the boat. And by the looks of it, as the shark, you bite off sections of the boat and remove those pieces from the board.
Interesting.
Thematically, it looks quite cool. I just wonder how many playthroughs there are. But as I say, I haven't looked into this in enormous detail. It just piqued our collective news-ferrety interest. The other one that I spotted is the District 9-based board game.
In prawn.
Yes, there had to be one of those in there somewhere, didn't there?
Yeah.
Steve there with his very worst South African accent.
Don't worry, you've got mine to come in a second. So this is a 2 to 4 player co-op game that unfolds over a dynamic hex-based tile space. The action itself goes on over 3 kind of in-game days until Wiku, is that his name? I can never pronounce it. Makes his last stand in the fucking prawn armour.
You're right, John. It was worse.
There you go. I kind of have highish hopes for this board game because I really like the film.
It's one of my favourite films. I really love this film.
I found it really odd because it really wasn't what I was expecting at all. I liked it, but I was expecting something completely different.
I think most people were.
So what is the actual aim of the game?
Yes, good question.
Vie for control of the district and the technological resources. So basically, it sounds like some form of area control where you're trying to control districts of District 9 and get hold of all the fancy alien technology by the looks of it.
Okay, and survive.
Now, this is by Weta Workshop, I assume.
It is.
It is.
Weta or Weta?
I think it's actually Weta. Now I've said Weta. I'm not sure. Have either of you two played GKR Heavy Hitters?
No.
No.
So this was the previous game they did, which wasn't related to any kind of...
Is that the one I described as big bastard robots?
It's in the big bastard robot genre, yes. And when we say big bastard robots, we mean big bastard robots. This board is absolutely huge. And it's got huge tower blocks on it. And you have like 4-inch tall robot miniatures that you've got to play with.
It's almost like Pacific Rim.
Yeah, it's that kind of scale you're supposed to be looking at. And it's really, really interesting because what you're trying to do is you're in some kind of like globalized, televised robots kicking the crap out of each other competition. But you get extra points for putting advertisements up.
Is Craig Charles in it? Or Dara O'Brien now these days, I suppose.
Wasn't it Lisa Rogers was presenting from the floor?
Yes, in the first few series, yes. Or was it Philippa? No, it was Philippa Forrester.
Philippa Forrester, that was it.
Yeah, no, Lisa Rogers was Scrap Heap Challenge.
Yes, I'm getting my Robert Llewellyn Bowen related.
Robert Llewellyn Bowen? How are you mixing up Home Improvement?
What's his name then?
It's Robert Llewellyn, but that you're confusing him with Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen. So basically, a guy in some flouncy clothes comes in, dresses up your robot, and then watches it fight.
I mean, there are probably worse shows out there in daytime television land.
There are. There's Jeremy Kyle, possibly Cash in the Attic. And what's that one with that silly orange twat in the suit? Bargain Hunt, that's the one.
You mean Bruce... I know you said Bruce Dickinson there, but he's the singer for Iron Maiden.
Oh, we're on fire tonight.
David, what's his chops?
David Dickinson.
That's the one, yes. Good.
Cheap as chips.
Good grief.
Anyway, back on point. GKR Heavy Hitters was a really nice production. They were beautiful miniatures, and it was a beautiful graphic design and everything. So hopefully they can replicate this with District 9.
The artwork does already look pretty good.
Rambling.
It came from somewhere.
Oh, God. Come on, Kate. Put us out of our misery and let's finish this news off.
Just one little thing that's really got most of us excited is on Kickstarter, Chocolate Factory.
Hurrah!
Is now live.
Yeah.
Yes. We rather enjoyed this now. If you want to go back and listen to podcasts, whatever it was, from the UK Games Expo last year, we played this and we really liked it, and it was a really early prototype. Now it has been...
titivated in the modern style.
Titivated, yes.
Polished.
It looks really, really nice, this.
It really, really
this
does.
This is a kind of an engine-building game where you have to... Ingredients come in one side of your factory and hopefully the correct chocolate orders come out the other. I say hopefully because I think I messed that game up horribly.
You're not the only one, mate. There was a lot of swearing when we played. Halfway through. Shit! Why did I put that there? It's very, very good.
I've not played it, but it does look very nice.
It is. It's wonderful. And needless to say, I'm already backing it.
Of course you are.
So that is the news.
We've got a whole list of games to talk about. Who wants to go first? Which game has got your goat? Which game has got you excited? Which game is making you burst of excitement to rip that cardboard lid off and play again, or kick off the roof and burn in a fire?
Well, I was there first on the Friday afternoon and booked myself in with Mr. Paul Grogan for a quick playthrough of Pulsar 2849. So set in the future, in space, where you are basically trying to zip around the galaxy, dump down people on planets, and set up little gizmos that orbit pulsars, funnily enough. Hence the name of the game.
Gizmos.
Gizmos, that's what I'm going to... Gyro something or others they're called. It's not gyroscopes, but it's some gyro something or other. And they orbit these pulsars and basically generate victory points.
They're not Dyson spheres, are they?
They're not Dyson spheres, because Dyson spheres surround stars, John.
No, they're not. They're the wheel in the vacuum cleaner.
Everyone knows Dysons don't have wheels in them.
It's that big ball, the big yellow ball. That's a Dyson sphere. No, this orbits a pulsar. At least it does in this game. And it does something scientific.
Collects resources.
Yes. Collects points, basically. The mechanics of the game are quite straightforward, actually. Pulsar looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. It's, at its essence, a dice drafting game with a bit of action selection chucked onto the side. So each turn, players will just... the first player rolls a bunch of dice, which depends on the number of players, and sorts them into 1 to 6 in these little boxes. The clever mechanic here is you then sort of take turns in drafting these dice, but the numbers that come out on the dice depend on the, what's the word, punishment or incentive. Let's put it that way. So you have 2 tracks. You've basically got an engineering track and an initiative track. So if you choose the lower numbered dice, you can't necessarily do quite as much, or at least as powerful a move, but you get to go up on one of these tracks depending on how far away from the median you are. And if
so
you choose
similar
the numbers,
to Dice Forge, then? Not Dice Forge, Dice Hospital.
No.
In that you roll a pool of dice, and then there are better dice and worse dice, but there are penalties for taking one end of the spectrum versus the other.
I suppose so, in that sense, yes. The mechanics of it are slightly different, but yes, I suppose so. And then, yes, it can affect, you can get to choose, basically, if you want to go up on the engineering track, which means you get little sort of cubes that you can spend on later, or it changes the turn order for the next turn. So, depending on what you want to do. Once you've done that, you then choose 2 actions, and potentially bonus actions if you do clever things with cubes, which allow you to move around the board, put down these little devices, put people on planets, which you get bonuses for in the later game. It's an 8-round game. Each round unlocks a different ability, or a number of different abilities that you can choose with your dice, which then allow you to do extra things. And the whole thing sort of basically just builds a little engine as you go along. Probably takes about an hour and a half to play a full game. We only played about half the game, which took us about 45 minutes, and that was a 3-player game. So I reckon a full game would probably last about an hour and a half. It's very straightforward and really, really good. Really enjoyed it, actually. Both me and Alora played it, both enjoyed it. Ben was really good, took us through that, said, I'm not concentrating on this game, and thoroughly thrashed us.
So either he's really good or you guys are bloody awful.
Let's say the first.
See, he's broken the first rule of game demoing salesman technique.
Thrashing us at it.
No, as the designer, you always go, let the person who's you're demoing the game to win, and they go, oh, look, you've won. Oh, I'm so bad at my own game. And we're like, yeah, right, you let us win.
I had that actually when I played Steamworks at Expo in 2016. Sat down with the designer, and I roundly thrashed him.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
He let you win.
He didn't seem like it, but yeah, probably.
Well, he's just a very good salesman. That's all that is.
And I did end up buying his game, actually. Or rather, actually, no, Elora did.
Better still.
But yeah, Pulsar, very, very good. Really enjoyed it. It's not overly expensive. It's not a massive game. Takes up quite a lot of space on the table, but it's very pretty and lots of options. So lots of thinky, but not heavy, which is nice.
It sounds quite interesting. I must admit, I suffered from the same problem you had. That I felt guilty that I have not played this in like 2 years, and Paul's been demoing it at every single convention we've been to. I do still need to play this one actually, and everyone keeps saying it's a good game. So
I think you'll both enjoy it actually.
I'd have played it if I could have gotten there in time.
Well, get your thumb out your arse, Cage. You know.
Some of us have got very busy jobs at the moment.
Yeah, our wives, not us.
Every time I get back to my desk from having been in various meetings and things, I look at my Facebook feed and there's like 50 messages from you guys and Rory chatting about all sorts of board gamey stuff. I'm like, how have you had this much time between like 8:30 and now?
We make the time, John. We multitask.
Efficiency,
yeah,
that's what
it is. Efficiency.
That must be it.
It's also, I work in very short bursts. I found this out. I work like intense short bursts, and then I have to have like 10 minutes staring out a window at nothing, and then just back at it kind of thing.
Yes, I think I do similar things. It's like you spend 45 minutes just going burning through a bunch of data analysis or whatever you're doing, and you think, yeah, my brain doesn't work anymore now. I need a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Yeah, it's exactly that actually.
Exactly, yeah. Or you're in the middle of something and then somebody rings you up and then you spend half an hour talking to them and you go back to what you were doing and you think, where the hell was I?
Fueled by tea, I am in the office, definitely.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Fueled by tea and coffee.
I can't have too much coffee, otherwise I don't sleep at night. I have to limit myself to a couple of mugs in the morning and then drink tea till about 4 p.m, otherwise I just don't sleep.
Yep, same here.
I've got to that point now.
Otherwise, it's like 11 o'clock at night and it's like, I'm getting up at 6. I'm getting up at 6.
Yeah.
I'm getting up. I'm wide awake.
Go to sleep, stupid brain.
Turn off, stop talking, stop thinking about board games, stop thinking about D&D, stop thinking about board games.
Yeah. That's it. I should go downstairs and sort them out. I need to do that.
Yeah, I must admit, I've found myself thinking about D&D far too much recently. What about if I took that spell? Oh, crap, it's 1:30 in the morning, I should go to bed.
Yep.
There's nothing worse, though, than you're trying to fall asleep and either a rule for a board game or a strategy for a board game pops into your head, or a rule for D&D pops into your head, and it's like you're lying there thinking, I'm going to have to get up and look at the player's handbook, or I'm going to have to get up and look at that rule book, because if I don't, this is going to bug me.
I'll let you into a little secret. I keep the player's handbook next to my bed.
Do you know what, John? So do I.
You think I'm joking, but I really do.
In my old flat in Malvern, I actually had my D&D chest next to my bed. That I would say it's not because I'm a massive nerd. It's because it's the only place it would fit in my house. But also a little bit, of the former as well.
Oh dear. Right, so that was Pulsar 2849. Do you give it the thumbs up? Has it got the PHC recommendation, Mr. Lewis?
It certainly does, yes. It's very,
Excellent.
very good.
1 PHC thumb up and 2 hovering probably towards the up.
I think you'll both like it. I don't think it's going to be good enough for a 3 for 3, but I think you'll both like it.
So, on our new rating system we've just devised this very second, let's get 1 thumbs up.
Yes. Just don't ask where that thumb's gone.
It's got 1 thumb up and 2 thumbs hovering. They're not down or not up, but watch this space.
So let's talk about a game which may not get 3 thumbs up.
What you say may not. You would be referring to Zoocracy and
Yes.
our recent playthrough with all three of us in the same game.
I know.
Indeed.
Zoocracy.
Which wasn't at City of Games. This was actually the weekend before. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is Zoocracy or Zoocracy.
It's got to be Zoocracy, surely.
I thought so, because it's about a game about democracy, ocracy, rather than cressy. I don't know. Mr. Lewis should be able to tell us. He's
literate.
He's studied the classics, so he should be able to tell us whether it's based on the Greek or Latin route.
I believe it's Greek, actually.
Okay.
Which is Zoocracy, yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Say it with confidence. We'll believe anything.
Exactly. So.
Sounds reasonable.
Despite having done, science pretty much all of my life, I'm clearly an authority on linguistics and the English language.
You studied Latin more than we have.
I did, and ancient Greek.
Well, there you go then.
It's more than 0, therefore your knowledge is greater.
I've had a classical education.
Zoocracy is a game which is on Kickstarter right now. I think it's launched about a week ago from the time you'll be listening to this, so it should be smack bang in the middle of its Kickstarter program. Hello folks, Future Steve here, coming at you from the future. Since the time where we started recording this podcast and I finished editing this podcast, the Zoocracy campaign has in fact been cancelled, which means at the moment it is not on Kickstarter, but my understanding it is going to be relaunched sometime over the next few months. Right, back to the present. Or is that the past? Oh, I'm so confused. It is a game by Has Games, and it is all about a parliamentary system in a zoo. So you'll all be playing different parties, and your job is to get your policies in place, which is basically a victory point track. So it's just a track of little scrolls across the board of these policies, and you'll be wanting to either get to the very end of the policy track, or you'll be wanting to have the most policies in place by the end of the game. You'll get these policies in place by either being the president, by being the head of parliament, basically, or there are a couple of action cards and such like which allow you to put policies in place.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about there's two different forms of kind of voting and bidding. So in the first round is the presidential election, where you're basically just doing a closed hand bid using your food as your resource. Whoever bids the most becomes the president, gets a policy out there straight out the way. And the other one is the parliamentary election, which is you are placing food on the different animal enclosures in the zoo, and each animal enclosure gives you a different number of seats in Parliament. So it's kind of very much similar to a first past the post parliamentary system where different jurisdictions are given certain amounts of seats.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the larger areas will give you whoever has the most food in that area will give you so many votes, and the second person some votes as well, whereas only award votes the person who's in charge. So what you're basically doing is you're distributing your food, trying to grab as many seats in Parliament as possible. Once that's all totted up, there's a very good chance that there's no clear winner.
In fact, there was never a clear winner in the game we played.
It's never a clear winner, yes. So in order to form a government, you must form a coalition. So at this point in the game, you must try and make some deals with your fellow players to try and form a coalition government to be in Parliament, be in power, and that gives you the power to dish out victory points. And basically what you're going to be doing is you're making these deals to try and stop whoever's in the lead from getting more victory points, or you'll be trying to do these deals to get your legislation in place, which gets you the victory points.
Or you do what Rory and I did and form a dual dictatorship.
This is where I think, definitely, we broke the game.
Yes.
Because, even speaking to the designer afterwards, after we played this, the designer assumed that what will happen is the person who is in the lead or second will form a coalition for someone who has got a few seats but will take them just above enough seats to get them into majority. And that'll keep the game ticking over quite nicely. Which is like the equivalent of what happened in British politics when, the Conservative government made a coalition with the DUWP or made a coalition with the Liberal Democrats and therefore got enough seats to get into power. What Andy and Rory did was the equivalent of the Tories and Labour going, do you know what? If we're in charge, we can knock everyone out of the game.
So we did.
Yeah, they did.
So it was effectively a coalition between Labour and Conservatives.
Yes, and we decided, we basically did the same thing for something like 5 rounds. We got about halfway
Yeah.
through the game, and we were just under halfway up the victory point track, and you two had not even got off the mark. And Rory and I basically came to the same conclusion that, do you know what, there is literally no point in us actually even bothering getting you two in the game. Because what's going to happen is, if we do that, we're going to increase the competition against either of us, which we're not going to do. So we might as well keep where we're going, and at about 80 or 90% of the way up this track, one of us is going to dick the other. And that's basically it. So I got bored and basically decided to allow Rory to coalesce with John, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, at which point I predictably stabbed him in the back.
Exactly. You did exactly what I knew you'd do. You promised me the earth and gave me little more than toilet roll.
No, I gave you nothing.
Yes.
Absolutely nothing.
Precisely. And yet you still didn't beat me.
I was so far behind that point.
Yeah, because Rory and I decided, this, it was working before, let's go back and do it again. At which point Rory was 2 points ahead of me, and I was no threat to him really at that point either. So we basically just went through the motions, and game broke, as you say, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
So while you guys were in the lead, there were opportunities where we might have been able to claw things back. But when you're in the lead, you end up garnering more results, more food each time, which gives you more power to buy seats, which gives you more food, which gives you more blah, blah, blah. So although I was gradually kind of clawing back up the track, Steve was absolutely screwed. Like, he just never got a chance to actually get any more food and therefore more votes. And every time it came close enough that I might have been able to do it, we were like 2 or 3, maybe 5 votes away from actually being able to form a coalition that could have at least challenged them. So we never quite made it. They just accelerated away.
Yeah, it's just this hideous runaway process.
This was a game where I had lost before the end of the first round.
That can't have been very fun.
No. I mean, I was intrigued because I was viewing at that point. I just viewed it as a kind of experiment because I knew we were going to be talking about the podcast. We've been asked to write a review of it, so at that point it was just more of I was then just observing what everyone else was doing and how everyone else was, working with the mechanics of the game. But it was just it really was at that point. I might as well have gone, well, screw you guys. I'm going to go play on the computer now.
I'm going home.
Yeah, but I couldn't do that because it was at my house.
Indeed.
You could still have done it. It just would have been a bit rude.
We'd have eaten all your biscuits as well, Steve. They'd have been unguarded.
True. Yeah, I don't trust you with biscuits.
Hey, I brought tiramisu. You ate half of that.
Yeah, it did. Oh, it was lovely. I mean, I could have eaten it with a straw, but that doesn't matter because it tasted amazing. To be fair,
it was a bit wet. I'll not deny it. I over-soaked the sponge, but other than that, it came out quite well.
It's definitely a euphemism for something.
I'm good at soaking my sponge, yeah.
No, over-soaking the sponge is definitely a euphemism for something.
That's going to end up in Viz's Profanosaurus, I'm sure it is. So yeah, Zoocracy. No, I mean we've played bidding games and stuff like that before, and I'm struggling to think of one, but I know I have.
Well, usually the bidding forms like a mechanic elsewhere in the game. The one I always think of is back to his Game of Thrones. There's tracks which determine player order, and you bid on those tracks, and that's just like one minor concept of the game. Whereas this was like the bidding was 90% of the game, because being president, I gave you a huge leg up at the beginning. But yeah, the biggest problem in this game is once you were behind, it was almost impossible to catch up unless everyone else spunked all their resources trying to become president.
Or they threw you a bone.
Yeah.
Which they weren't going to do.
Yeah, we did get one rule wrong, which is to blame on the rulebook. The designer has actually admitted that the rulebook is a little bit ambiguous, which is there are these roll cards. So when whoever is Prime Minister can give out roll cards which are Defence Minister and Foreign Minister. And actually, I misinterpreted the rule because the way the rules were written, it felt like you couldn't play action cards. There were some action cards in the game which allowed you to affect various things. And I understood it that you couldn't play action cards at all if you didn't have a roll card, which also means like in a 4-player game, one person isn't going to get any roll cards, which is me. Ends up I was wrong, but the designer has agreed with me the rule book was an error there, which then meant Well, what the hell's the point in the roll cards?
That's a good question, actually. I suppose because some of the action cards do refer to specific roles, don't they?
You mean the event cards?
That's the one, yes.
Yeah, some of the event cards, but they were few and far between. It was like one for each role.
True. Oh, actually, speaking of which, we did decide that a lot of the event cards were actually really quite overpowered. Some of them were very inconsequential. Like, you'll get one extra food or something. And then the other one gives you an entire victory point, which were quite valuable. So they're very swingy event cards.
I also say as well, this is designed to be, it says in the box 2 to 6 players. I will say this game does not work with less than 4. I mean, I'd argue the game barely works as it is, but I did try this game 2 players, and the game just did not work with 2 players. At 2 players, it was just an area control game where you're just putting resources on the board. And that was it. There was no, because you've missed the negotiation, you've missed that third player messing around. So, I cannot recommend this game. It feels like a game which is there to teach you how parliamentary systems work,
or not, as the case may be.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it feels like it's a game which is almost like educational, but like got an agenda that shows you how parties that are already in power get more money to keep themselves in power, whereas the parties that aren't in power really struggle. And from an educational point of view, I think I hammered that home. But I'm not playing a game to be educated. I want to play it to have fun, and I didn't have any fun with this, unfortunately.
I don't mind being educated while I play a fun game, but I did not enjoy the experience myself.
No, I think that goes for all 4 of us. We got halfway through the game, and I was basically going, right, I'm done now. Can we call it, lads? Please, can we call it? No, we're carrying on. Hey.
Well, yeah, that was partly my fault because I kind of wanted it to suddenly go, oh, and then this happens, and then we claw our way back, and it's an interesting game.
Yeah.
But we got to basically the end, and it was like, no.
No.
When I realised I wasn't going to win, I did double check the event deck to see when the final card was going to come up, because it's randomised when the end of the game is. So you play a random number of rounds, and I did realise that it was as high up in the deck as it possibly could be, so the game was going to end the earliest it could, and I went, let's just play this out then. I'm just going to keep quiet, and if everyone else agrees not to play it, we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to make sure we had played a full game for the very reason that John said that wasn't some event card in there that was going to completely mix things up.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It would have been quite exciting if it had felt like you guys are basically walking it, and then something royally stuffs you, and suddenly Steve and I are back in the game, and it becomes a close thing. That would be all right.
Well, would it though? Yeah. Because if you ever look at the other end of the other side of the coin from that, Rory and I were at the front, and all of a sudden some kind of Deus Ex comes out, and you're like, well, what the hell happened to that?
Blue shell.
Exactly. A blue shell is that's shit as well. It's like, I've done all of this work towards winning the game. Although, okay, so in our case, it was basically locking out the other two. Yeah, basically don't screw up. And then all of a sudden, you get the blue shell, you get smacked on the arse, and you're down at the bottom for absolutely no reason at all. So I don't think that would have been a valid outcome either.
If it just swapped our respective places in the game, I agree, that would have been awful. But if it had just prevented you from finishing that minute, which gave us a chance to come back, maybe that would have made it more interesting. Anyway, it's a moot point because it didn't happen. So
bit pants.
Yep. So that's Zoocracy. I don't think any of us recommend it, do we?
Afraid not.
No. Negative, Captain.
Go on, Mr. Cage. Tell us about something you've been playing.
Yes, so, well, not just me. In fact, all 3 of us at City of Games had an introduction to Tiny Towns, which, I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed.
I did as well.
So, Tiny Towns is a game about, funnily enough, making little towns. You start off with a 4x4 grid of squares, and you basically take it in turns to pick a coloured cube for everyone to place upon their respective boards. Simple enough, right? So then, every time you place those into a particular sequence of colours spatially to match one of the upturned cards that represents a building, all of those cubes disappear, and you replace one of those squares with the aforementioned building. Different buildings have different abilities. So some of them will give you more victory points. Some of them will feed other buildings so that they can score their victory points. Some of them will give you more points based on the number of different types of buildings in a line with them. And that all sounds like quite a nice idea. Everyone's happy, we make this nice happy game, and everyone scores the maximum points and it's all fun.
Yep. Games always work like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Except it's slightly more strategic than that. Because although you're trying to build your perfect combination of buildings so that you get a good load of points, obviously every time you pick one of these squares, everyone else gets the same square. And although they get to choose where it goes on their board, they don't get to choose whether or not it goes on their board. So once you've got the basic idea of what you need to get done on your area, the next trick is to then start studying other people's boards and looking at, he's already got 4 blue cubes out there, so he probably doesn't want any more blue cubes because there's not a lot of space to go in there. I think I'll go for a blue cube.
And then you get called a variety of pretty words.
Yeah, and every turn after about the probably 4th or 5th turn, at least one person was going, "Oh, you absolute bastard."
At least one person.
One thing that's worth pointing out as well is you all have an individual building. So there's a set of buildings in the centre which you all pick from, which like taverns, factories and houses and such like. But everyone gets like a unique building, which is a little tower, isn't it? So it has a unique pattern. And I think that's very, very important because without that, everyone could end up with exactly the same town.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's true.
And it's also the reason why I completely screwed up.
Oh, you did, didn't you? Yes, you were sat out for the last third of the game, looking quite grumpy.
I was out of the last third of the game because I'd filled my tiny town with basically rubbish. It was basically a very topical joke, like the streets of Birmingham at the moment. And the other problem I had was you lose points based on like blocks, like building materials, these cubes left on your board. So I did poor, then I lost a load of points. So basically, I think I had about half the final points that you two did.
I think it's fair to say that as a spatial kind of geometry-esque game that also involves dick moves, I was somewhat in my element playing this game.
Yes, indeed.
I loved it.
I enjoyed it too. It was good.
Tetris bingo, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tetris bingo. House. Literally. House.
Yes!
I did like it. About halfway through, it clicked with me that, hang on, I don't have to just work towards one building here. So I can put down a bunch of these cubes and I can kind of almost play the odds.
Yep.
You know, and accommodate a number of these different cubes because eventually I'm probably, he says, going to get the right combination, assuming I don't run out of squares, so I can disappear and create a building. And that worked quite well until somebody kept picking blue cubes.
See, I thought that, but then I made the terrible mistake of I went straight for my personal building first and built it in the middle of the thing, which then meant straight away I'd already blocked out the top left-hand corner of the board, which means I could never build anything there. And I quickly blocked out the rest of the board. And it was just like, I'm very quickly running out of space. If anyone gives me anything other than the grey cube right now, John's bit blue.
Yeah. Not by accident, I should add.
No, it's very good. Really enjoyed it. And, I mean, you noticed at the end as well, Steve, we were going through all the sort of the game components. Whilst there was something like, was it 7 or 8 building cards in the middle of the board, there's an enormous deck of these things. So there's a huge combination of what could possibly come out, as well as obviously the unique buildings and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it was really, really
varied. Combine them up, you're going to have hundreds of variations of this easily. So no two games should be the same with this. You should have different unique buildings, and the common buildings should all be different each time, so that you can't rely on knowing what combination of buildings is going to work.
Yes, which is quite nice. But it was really straightforward to play. I think there were a couple of other mechanics that were probably there that we didn't use, because we were obviously just playing the basic introductory game, but it worked really well, really straightforward. There was hardly any downtime because you're always doing something, even on somebody else's turn when they pick a cube, they say a cube, so you're doing something. So there's almost zero downtime. It rattled along really quickly because it is literally just pick a cube, everyone else picks a cube, next person's go, done. Really, really great.
Yeah.
There were times where someone was still picking at a cube from 2 turns ago. It's like, you need to hurry up. There's another blue one and then a red one that you need to place, okay? And now you've got foresight of what's going to happen because people were too impatient to wait.
Chop, chop.
So there was a little wooden hammer that got passed around as the first player token, so you knew whose turn it was to pick the blocks. But 50% of the people playing that game couldn't be bothered.
Why are you looking at me and Steve?
Yep. It felt a bit superfluous. It was only really useful when someone was really taking their time making a decision on the other side of the table. But even then, as you said, it got to the point when we did follow the hammer around. It got to someone who was like, "What do you mean it's my turn? I'm still doing the cube that I picked on my turn." It's like, hurry up, come on.
Yeah, chop, chop. We ain't got all day. So yeah, really good. Really, really good.
Quite like that, yeah. I'd like to play a few more games of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's coming out in June, if I remember rightly.
Yes, it's not out yet because I tried to buy it yesterday.
So did I.
It's on pre-order at Chaos Cards. I know that. It's by AEG, if anyone's interested. And yeah, June sounds about right. So I am almost certainly going to pre-order that.
So there you go. That's Tiny Towns.
Laura and I managed to convince our mutual friend Dave, who we actually met for the first time at NAP up at John's house last year when we were all up there suffering Talisman. We managed to convince Dave to play because he'd never played. I don't think he'd really played a game quite as heavy as Twatty Hadouken before. So sort of explained the rules. He is frighteningly good at picking up rules very quickly, and he promptly handed mine and Alora's asses to us. And I don't just mean he beat us by like 10 points out of 120. He got 160 points and we were on about 115. He absolutely battered us.
Well done, Dave.
Yeah, so well played him. And yeah, I'm going to be copying. Well, I would say I'm copying his strategy. I've used his strategy before, but I still didn't do that well. I think I got 140 or so. So obviously he did extra stuff as well. So it's certainly possible. So there's plenty of stuff in Twatty Hadouken. Very, very good game. We had a quick game of Vadoran Gardens, which you two have played before.
Yes.
Which is
in fact,
it's actually last year's.
Yes.
Everyone who went to City of Games got a copy of Vadoran Gardens, which was nice.
It's very nice of Frank to do that. Yeah, it's a very nice surprise. And so I played it as well with Dave and Alora as well. We really enjoyed that actually. It took Alora a little bit of getting used to the rules, but once we got used to that, really great little game actually. Quite enjoyed that.
I seem to remember it having difficulty getting my head around some element in the way that the card ordering happened.
Yes.
I hate to play it again and
that's the bit that
myself.
confused Alora as well. Essentially, you've got 2 rows of cards. One's the one you're currently picking from, and one's the next one that you choose that you want next.
Yeah.
And you can only put down specific cards that match the symbols of the card at the end of the row. That's quite a nice game. Lasts about half an hour. You're basically putting down cards that make little paths out of water, soil, or grass.
Sand.
Yeah. Most points at the end of the game wins. You pick up little relics. You can put the relics on the little path that you make if you find any, which get you more points. And then, yeah, most points wins at the end of the game, which I think Dave won that one as well.
Yeah.
There's a theme developing here.
There is, yes.
I'm sure you guys must have won some other games that you taught to us. What else do we play? Ah, yes, Root.
Now, before you get cocky, Mr. Cage, I'm pretty sure your result in this game was not a result of your own actions.
I'm not being cocky that I won. I definitely don't deserve to be cocky for that because I don't really feel like I had much of a hand in it.
No, Alora won.
Yeah, I think that was mostly down to Alora's tuition.
But this had a theme developed, wasn't it, Mr. Cage?
Yeah.
Basically, of the weekend, which is we spend a game where John looks thoroughly perplexed throughout the entire game, complaining that it's too complicated and he doesn't know what's going on. Where he takes 10 minutes over his turn, where everyone takes 2, and at the end of the game, he goes, "Oh look, I won."
Yes.
To be fair, I think that was the worst case. It didn't help that you'd given me the most complicated race.
No, that was an oversight on my part, I have to admit. But that was only because in the Root rulebook, which we will come on to in a minute, it does suggest certain combinations of factions depending on the number of players. And the one we played was one of the recommended ones. So I was going to substitute you for the cat, because the cat in that, the Mucky the cat, is a lot
You're going to get the
simpler.
cat to play in my place.
Yes.
I mean, it probably would have got the rules quicker, but come on.
I talked about Root last time. Now you two have played it. What did you think? Come.
I want to play it again.
Hey.
I want to play it again. Oddly,
I really want to play it again. It got under my skin, that game.
Yes.
It's making me itch, that game. I want to play it again.
It's a really clever little game. It is very, very good.
You had it spot on. You said, when you were teaching us the rule, and me and John were looking at you like you were, I don't know, a plant pot or something, trying to explain astrophysics to us.
To be fair, I had
said,
6 pints at that point.
Yes, to be fair, it was 10 p.m. We were all a little bit tired. I was still digesting the mountain of meat I'd had at the Turkish restaurant. And I think I was quite low on alcohol, but I think I was definitely suffering from minor meat sweats. And you said, hummus poisoning. And you said, oh, don't worry, end of the second round, you'll get it. And I'm looking at you, I'm thinking, what a load of twunk. I'm not going to understand this. I haven't got the faintest clue what I'm supposed to be doing here. And it came to the end of my second round, I passed the turn over to Dave, and my brain suddenly went, bing! Ah, I've got it!
There you go.
It makes sense now!
Yep. See? It does.
unless you're playing the lizard race.
Yeah, it took Laura a long time to get used to the lizards as well, because when we were first playing that, actually it was Friday, we played the lizard and the one that Steve had, the river folk.
River folk.
Because those are the two factions that we'd not played before. And it took Laura a long time to get used to the lizard one. It was really quite complicated. I was sat there as the river folk, much like you did during your game, Steve, basically with my thumb up my arse going, right, I'm done, you'll go. Don't get on with it. It's really complicated. Stop it. Stop getting grumpy at me. I'm bored. Get on with it. I've done my bit. I've only got 2 things to do.
Basically, the river folk, obviously there were different ways you could approach it, but I think if you can get it to work, one of the most effective strategies is basically like a high interest bank account. You basically just plug all your resources into one thing and keep them there. And if you can do that, you can ramp up the number of victory points you're going to get every turn. And I twigged this just as you guys were starting to break away into the lead, and I realised if I'd done this managed to pull this off a few rounds earlier, I think I could have actually gone and galloped ahead. But it does basically mean it comes around to your turn and you just do a bit of, upkeep and then go, I'm done. Yeah.
It's not particularly exciting.
It's not particularly exciting, no, but it's quite interesting trying to get to that point because the river folk they got resources by flogging their wares to other players, which is also quite difficult because I had to keep reminding people, look, you can buy these things off me.
Yes.
It wasn't quite as simple as that because to buy things, in my case, you could buy things using your spare minions that you'd be bringing out on the board.
Yes.
So I did end up spending something like 10 of my, I don't know how many there are, but there must be like 35, 40,
24,
something like that.
I think it is for you.
Yeah, so I had like 50% of the things that I could put on the board are now in Steve's inventory, and the bastard wasn't releasing them. So I'm like, keep telling me to spend more stuff. I'm like, well, you release some, come, let's keep the economy going.
Yeah, the downside is, and this is true for the Vagabonds as well that myself and Dave were playing, that they rely on the other players doing the things that we can interact with. Like in our case, for the Vagabond, It's crafting, so we can basically buy items off you if we want, which helps us do actions. Yeah. Obviously, Steve you sell cards essentially to other players so that you can do more actions as well. The problem is, if the other players either don't want to or don't realise they can do these additional things, you're
It was the don't realise they can, I think, was the bigger issue. I mean, not wanting to, you can understand due to strategy. I felt there was a definite problem of not realising you could.
Yes.
Yeah. And then realising that you could, but you couldn't until you actually went to the trading post where you could do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that was also a strategy for the river folk, and I had to build the trading posts as well. So there's a strategy of me trying to get the trading posts in the right place to make it attractive for you to come to these places and do it. while not being kicked in the arse by the Eerie, who have to attack every round because they've set up their programming. That was the way the Eerie worked was absolutely fascinating. It was like, remember me, like Mechs versus Minions. Basically, one player is playing Mechs versus Minions, whereas another player is running a bank account, and another player is like John is playing Battlestar Galactica as the Cylons, just taking people out and replacing them.
Just sprouting up and going, bang, right, I'm having this place. This is now mine. Yes. No, you're right, actually. Do you know what? We're actually starting to sound like shut up and sit down now. Because one thing Finn said was that it's basically 4 different games going on at the same time. And he's right.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I found most difficult. Like, not only was I learning a completely new race and a new game, but I was watching like 4 other people play completely different games, which I was supposed to be stopping them doing the stuff that they're doing. So I'm like trying to keep half an eye on what other people are doing, and then Andy will just like whip through his turn like, I'm done. Like, what did you just do? Nothing, I'm done now. Oh, great.
Usually it was involved in jumping out of the forest, spearing 2 people, and then jumping back in again.
Yeah, it's tricky as well. So you said that your go was kind of, a lot of the time was just little upkeepy bits. For the lizard folk, you have like a pre-go where you kind of set up a bit of your board. Then you actually pick a bunch of actions based on all of your hand and buying stuff from other people, making sure that you've killed a few of your guys, take some guys off the board, put some guys onto the board, make sure you haven't screwed up too horribly. And then there's like a post like main bit, just kind of tear down, where you tidy a few bits and pieces up, and you just like, I've got like 3 goes for everyone else's 1, and I have no idea what I'm doing any of them. For the first 2 or 3 turns, I couldn't do anything in the first chunk, so it's like, can I do this? No. Can you do that? No. Can I do this? No. Okay, so what bits can I do? You can do that bit there. Oh, except Steve hasn't built any trading posts. What the I just sat there feeling like, for the first couple of turns, it was like, okay, have I won? That's number 1.
Pretty much. That's why I should have given you the cat. The cat is a lot simpler. Basically, the idea is that the cat starts occupying most of the board, and they have to build buildings to score points. But you can only obviously build on specific spots, like you could build your little gardens as the cult. So, of course, the cat expands really quickly because it controls a lot of the board. But, of course, as soon as it runs into enemies, it literally just hits a brick wall and it can't build anymore because there either aren't enough spots or all the other enemies are going, nope!
Yeah. So I kind of get the lizard folk now, but it took most of the game for me to kind of get what bits you do and when you can and can't do them. It's just difficult to find out. And there wasn't like there was a sort of quick start guide thing that said, and here's the sections that you can do. You know, like if you've ever played Neuroshima Hex,
yes,
they've got on the back of the card there's a here's how you play this faction hint section.
Well,
it did have something along those lines. It did have that on the back of the cards, and it had that information on the card as well, which is the strategy side of it.
Yes,
it gave you some hints. What I think it actually needed was a better way for you to learn how to play that faction, because I didn't even have the rule book open for my faction in front of me, and I was baffled about what was going on, but we'll get onto that in a second. The game needs a way to learn the game easier.
It kind of has that, but it's bollocks.
The other thing is that on Neuroshima Hex, the cards have the hints on the back. You can just refer back and forth to it. On this, it's on the back of the board, but the board's got all these tokens on it.
Yes, it does. That's the part of the problem.
So I took a picture of the back of my board.
Mr. Lewis demonstrated this perfectly, because I had to nip out while you were setting up, and I come back in, and Andy's got the riverboat forward, balancing above his head with the tokens on. I turn up, he quickly pumps his head to see who's coming close, and drops every single token that's all over the room.
Yes, that was an administrative oversight on my part.
It was quite funny to see.
This comes back to basically, I mean, as I said last week, basically the rule books are shite. Absolutely.
And rule books as well.
Yes.
Rule books. It was like, where's the rule for this? Oh, it's in that book. Well, why isn't it in this book? Yeah. Oh, because that's the faction rule book. But it doesn't include this rule. Oh, no, that's in this rule. What? I mean, it just... it was bewildering. And even then, some of the terminology, there was like, I mean, we had a discussion about the lizard people, how the way they discard into a certain slot.
yes.
And then it's at the end of the turn, it says, move your cards into the discard pile, which when you know what you're supposed to be doing, makes sense.
Yes.
Once you know what you're supposed to be doing, you can see the subtlety in the language. But when you're trying to learn that, you're like, hey, what, I discard this into that, but then I discard it? Does that go back into there? Or does that go over? Yeah. There are a few places where I thought that rule book could have been... It needs a better way of learning that game and a better way of referring to the rules, definitely.
The problem with it is, I've found that it's written in a way that it's trying to be approachable and friendly and get you into the game straight away, so there's not too much learning.
Yeah.
The problem is it doesn't work, because it's a complicated game. Once you've played it... Well, this is why I say you need to play it before you can play it.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense, yeah.
Because you've got the kind of introductory, almost like FFG do with like the basic rulebook and then the reference guide. You've got the sort of introduction rulebook, which is the wee one that you kept flicking through going, what's this mean? And then you've got the Law of Root, which is like the reference book, although that, to be fair, isn't much better in some cases. And it kind of claims that, if you get into games and you learn rules by reading them rote, then learn the Law of Root, read the big hefty one, and away you go. Or if you prefer to learn by playing, then do this, or just use the quick start guide, which takes you through the first two turns of the game. But don't set up the game properly. Do exactly what it says. I'm thinking, well, that doesn't fucking work, because A, it doesn't use half the mechanics, doesn't use half the tokens, and it doesn't teach you how the faction works, because you're not using half the abilities when you want to. So there's no point in doing that either. So, yeah, and there's so much ambiguity in it. And was it you, me, and Dave were all reading the rulebook going, the hell does this mean? Andy, how does this work? I have no idea. I can't find it in the rulebook. Feel free to try, guys. No, we can't find it either.
Also, it's your go.
Yeah.
I've spent my half an hour. It's your turn now, Andy.
That's it exactly. The thing is, in there is a really, really, really good game. It's just so... It's like trying to sort of... It's about as twisted and as impenetrable as a granite octopus. It's ridiculous.
How does your brain come up with these things? Broke him again.
Oh, maybe that's the 7th faction for the new Kickstarter.
Granite octopus.
Is it octopus or octopi?
We've been through this. It's octopus.
It's octopuses, yes.
Doesn't seem like it should be.
No.
No.
But anyway, that's Root. It's definitely worth playing.
We will play it again.
I have a final thought on this. We were so engrossed in that game. I said, because we ended up playing Endeavour till quite late on the Friday night. And I said, no, I'm going to go to bed at a sensible time on the Saturday night. And we started playing Root about 10:30, maybe it was. And I remember looking round at one point and realising, because my back was to the rest of the conference hall, so I had no idea what was going on behind me. And I looked behind me, and the entire City of Games is empty apart from like 6 or 8 people. I went, where the hell's everyone gone? And looked at my watch, and it was 5-1 in the morning.
Yep.
I went, oh crap.
Yeah, I didn't get to
so
bed.
much for the early nights.
Didn't get to bed till about past
We've
1
got time for another half of one of John's turns.
Pretty much. But yeah, so there you go. You've played Root now, guys.
Yes, I need to play it again. No doubt we will talk about Root in depth again sometime soon.
Well, apparently there's a rule book that actually works, is in the works. It's probably going to be released on Board Game Geek at some point, so keep your eyes peeled on that. Don't know when, and I don't know what form it's going to take. But
there is a 3rd Kickstarter coming along, which is going to include another expansion, apparently. So reprint another expansion.
Yes.
So I think it's part of that.
Okay, that would make sense.
Mm.
An expansion. Jesus, it was mental with 5.
Maybe it'll just give you more options to play. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to play it with more people, Andy.
I don't think any more options are required.
You'll get bored of them eventually. Maybe.
Anyway, speaking of options, there were quite a few options in Endeavour that we played on the Friday night, which Steve has just mentioned. Now, we've talked about this before. Steve and I played it shortly after you got it, and it won my Insert of Choice Award for 2018. It did well there.
Indeed.
And we played it on the Friday night, so there were, 4 or 5 of us playing?
5-player game, so max chat, maximum count, 5 players.
And, obviously I won, obviously. Much to John's consternation.
Not by much.
Oh, enough.
I enjoyed that game.
Yes. No, it's very, very good. It's also quite simple in its mechanic. In that it's literally your go, choose an action, dump a counter on the board, take the reward, increase your ability, next person. Job done.
You missed out the Dick over Andy section.
Yeah, you tried that and it didn't work. I was undickable.
That's not true. We did manage to dick over you a little bit, but just the tip.
Yes. Dave's strategy of trying to conquer Europe with firepower almost kicked me out, but not quite.
You fought back.
I did. I thought it was sensible.
My one criticism of that game is actually countered by how we played it. Previously, when me and Andy played it, we played it 2-player. So we'd use there's kind of a dummy player rule you can use, which basically clogs up the board quicker. So we played that with 5 players, and I think that is a 5-player game. I think you might be able to get away with 4 players, but I think that's a 5-player game.
I'm inclined to agree with you, because it felt cosy but not cramped.
Yeah.
You know, there was always an option for somewhere to go, but there was interaction, and it wasn't like, oh God, I'm really struggling for somewhere to go here. There was always something to do, or at least that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And it was a real serious choice of, well, can I go there? Can I go there? Can I go there? Okay, I can go in all 3. Which one's best? Which one screws John over the most? That sort of thing. Where do I get the most out of this? If I get a card, can I do this? Ooh, can I be the governor? Do I want a slave? All that sort of stuff. So it was, yeah, I think I agree, Steve. It's definitely 4 or 5.
I enjoyed it. First time playing it, and it made sense. I didn't felt like I needed to spend an hour on every turn.
And I have non-backer's remorse now, because that's a lovely game.
I must admit, I was looking for it online, and it's something like 70 quid.
Wow. There's a lot in the box, though, assuming you get everything that Steve got for the Kickstarter version.
Bizarrely, most of what's in that box is expansions. Because what you played was the basic game, which is the same as the Endeavour, which came out donkeys years ago. So everything, basically, I would say half that box is bling for expansions, which I haven't touched yet.
Definitely.
Which add things like blockades and all sorts of random things on there, and goals and factions. And
I think it's a good enough game on its own, to be honest.
I think so, yeah. Which I backed it because I'd played the original game and knew that the base game was good. So I don't know if I'll ever actually play any of that extra stuff at this rate, but we'll see.
Yes.
So another game we all played, which we played actually in reaction to playing Zoocracy, to be fair. Because Zoocracy was a game which pretended to be about negotiation, and we wanted a game which had some real negotiation, and that's New Angeles.
And it kind of went down like a bit of a cup of cold sick with a few people.
It did, yeah.
But I'm glad we played it again, because I really like it.
I'm not sure about it.
I'm a little bit colder on it than I was when I last played it. I think it's a difficult game to get to the table. Again, it needs 5 or 6 players. And I just think it's a little bit long.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you played like 3 phases where you got to do 3 goals. I do wonder if it could do with some rules in it to play like 2 goals, but that would involve rebalancing some of the cards. Because what you're doing in this game is you're fighting over a couple of things. Like, you're trying to affect the board to meet your personal goals to basically make the most money. But you're also trying to win these assets, which are like what you win every round. And towards the end of the game, I didn't care what these assets were.
Yeah, you're supposed to be collectively working together to get the assets.
Yes.
Otherwise, everyone loses the game. Except there is a traitor, potentially, in your midst who does want the game to win, to end.
He says,
but not until
his moustache.
I mean, it's not me. I actually think I played that reasonably well. I don't think anyone.
I was going to say, John,
was...
I thought you played that very, very well. I had no idea you were the Federalist at all. I genuinely thought it was Steve to start with, because he was doing a few Federalisty things until he looked at the track and shat himself. I thought, okay, it's not him then.
I think it helps that for you to win as that particular player, so everyone else has to beat another player by having more points than them when you get to the end of the number of rounds. For the Federalist, for the bad guy, the secret agent, you have to have more than 25 points when basically the threat level means that everyone loses. And so, unlike some games where it feels like you're basically just trying to dick over everyone as much as possible without getting caught, this one was like, I actually need to look like I'm just going for points whilst keeping the threat level low. And just when there's an opportunity to kind of allow the threat level to increase, it's okay, but make sure that everyone thinks that you're not on board with it increasing. Oh yeah, that would be terrible. We definitely do that one. Let's see, how can I rig this so that we can't complete that one?
Yes.
I quite enjoyed that aspect of it, but I did find Laura's managed to gain an extra 5 cards pretty much the first turn, and from that point on, it's a bit like Zoocracy in that she suddenly had this buying power to sway all sorts of stuff. A couple of you guys managed to increase your hands, and once you'd done that, it's like you then seem to manage to keep that going, keep that momentum going. Mm-hmm. So it got you better bonuses, which gave you more opportunities to get more cards, which gave you more bonuses, and so on and so forth. And I kind of felt like a lot of times, even when I put like my kind of Trump special ability card down, everyone just went, yeah, we're not interested in that. Let's go for this other thing that's not really going to benefit anyone. It's like, well, yeah.
It's all about timing. That's the thing. You've got to think 2 or 3 turns in advance, really.
I had been, or I thought I had been.
But in terms of agenda, you really got to mould people into thinking, well, okay, you're going to do that, you're probably going to do that, you're the corporation interested in, biotech in your case. I think you're obviously going to be interested in curing viruses because you obviously get points for that, etc. So if you think in your head, right, okay, I really want to get this thing down, but with the offer that's just come out, there's no way someone's going to vote for this. So I'll wait till the next turn and go, nah, no counter offer here. It's all good. What are you doing, Andy? This. Bang. Ha ha ha. We don't want it, Andy. God damn it.
That's fine, except when you spend the first 2 or 3 turns biding your time and everyone else is halfway up the track, you're like, if I don't do something, I'm not going to score any points at all.
But that's when you rig the board and get lots of viruses on it and then go, right, we can cure them all. And everyone's like, yeah, we should probably do that.
Yeah, but it's not as simple as just rigging the board because everyone votes as to how you rig the board. And everyone goes, yeah, let's not get all the viruses. That's a bad idea. Let's put some more outages out because we can cure those things.
That would be me going, because I get paid for outages.
Of course, yeah. I don't know. To me, as the player playing the biology character, it seemed like things were weighted more heavily towards the outages and to some extent the strikes. So if you had a character that was better at manipulating that stuff, you stood a better chance of being able to make some adjustments to those things. Maybe it's just the cards that came up. I don't know.
I think that's a combination of the cards that come up, and I think that actually is a little bit the balance of the game, which everyone thinks that.
Okay.
Everyone thinks the game is balanced more towards everyone else.
It's just how it feels.
Yeah, because you were actually getting money from your corporation ability because you were clearing viruses.
Yes.
Whereas mine was...
So that's the distinction, right? My ability, I actually only got 4 points from that in the end, from clearing viruses.
It's 4 points more than I got from my ability. Okay. My ability was, if threat doesn't go up, you get some points. And a threat went up every single round.
Yeah, okay. The thing that was scoring me lots is that I picked up a card that basically did the opposite. If a biological emergency caused the threat to go up, I got 2 points. If we cured one of those biological disasters, which was my ability, then I got 2 points. So at that point, I was like, right, now I can do something.
Yeah.
I like it, but I do agree it is a very long game. And I think it's
a very long game.
You need the right group of players, I think, for that.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of giving it all the fluff, going, well, we need to do this in the town. I know Steve was doing the same thing, and Alora and Kaz were just, well, shut the up and play the card.
Yeah, I think for Kaz, she felt like she had basically no agency in that game. Every time she tried to make any kind of effect, it just got completely vetoed. So when someone puts down the master plan and then someone else puts down a counter offer, every time she put down a counter offer, someone went, don't like your counter offer, I'm going to replace it with this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's part of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, but if it happens every single time...
It's a game I love the concept of, but I'm beginning to wonder whether the game will get played much more. I mean, it's a game I own, and I think I've played twice.
Mm. Yeah.
And I do wonder whether it's going to get much more plays because it requires that many people.
Mm.
And it takes so long.
It is going to be difficult. Yeah. I like it. I've got it, but I agree, Steve. My copy's not actually seen the light of day yet.
I would like to play it again, but as a different faction.
Okay, what else did we play that's tickled your fancy then? Because we are running out of podcast time right now.
One of the little game that we played, Steve and I played anyway, was Railroad Inc., which we've mentioned before on the podcast. But this is the first time we've actually got it to the table. And I think I recall saying back then that I thought I'd really like this game. I was right. So this is the little grid-based game where you're drawing on the symbols that turn up when you roll the dice.
It's a roll and write.
There you go.
Not roll and rat.
That's something else.
Roll and write.
What fens?
Yeah.
Cousin to Rondell.
Oh, God. Dear. And mixed herbs.
Yes, indeed.
And Angus McCotup.
Oh, my God. And you say I'm the one with the bad jokes. Seriously?
Yeah, I rather like this as well. This was really quite simple. It was like 10 minutes or so, or 10, 20 minutes I think we played this for.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, this is one of those brilliant games as well when halfway through the game somebody just goes, balls!
Yeah.
What? I think I've completely messed this up. What I found quite interesting in this game is it's entirely possible for everyone to do the same thing. And I didn't realise until halfway through that's why the boards are folded.
Mm-hmm. So it's more difficult to copy.
You can't see what other people... Yes, you can't see what other people are doing because you're all... You know, I said there was a potential problem with tiny towns where you could all build the same towns, but you had your unique thing. Well, in Railroad Inc., you could, in theory, all come up with exactly the same route and all have exactly the same points at the end of the game because you're all building things from the same pool of dice.
Yeah.
Of course, it only makes one person to make one decision different, and of course, everything goes awry. But I suddenly realised that the little board folds up so you can't see what other people are drawing. But yes, I built a railroad straight into a road, didn't realise it until 4 turns later.
Whoops. You think?
Still not entirely sure what I'm supposed to have done with that, because that wasn't in the rules. But never mind, we just classed it as a minus and went on.
Crack on.
Yeah, I think that was all right. You just lost some points for it. It's interesting you say that about the player boards hiding what you can see, because when you spotted that, you're like, oh, that's quite cool that you can't see each other, and so that it prevents you from doing that. And we all had a quick look at each other's boards, and me and Amanda had independently drawn exactly the same thing, but mirrored. I don't know what that says about us.
Terrifying that you have the same brain as my wife.
But mirrored.
Good grief. Yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't play this because I must admit it didn't really grab me when we were talking about it the first time. So happy to have missed out on that one.
I think it's worth a go because it only takes, I said, at most half an hour, and that's.
Okay.
I mean, that was learning the rules as well. Bearing in mind, I'd never played this before, so I was learning from the rule book as we were playing, and it took us about half an hour.
That's good.
So I think it's worth a go.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I was more concerned about playing things like prehistory, which is at pretty much the polar opposite end of the spectrum. I'm not going to talk about it here because I really need to play it again. But what I would like to raise is Space Base.
Ah, yes.
Which we all played.
I did not.
Oh, you didn't play? Oh, right.
No.
Interesting.
But you've played it before, right?
No.
No? I thought you said you had.
No, I've seen it before.
Okay.
I've seen it demoed, but I've never played it.
No, it's another demo from G-Dog at his little demo strand. And he set it all up for us. And it's if you've played Mashikuru and Dice Forge, imagine those two games stuffed together. You've basically got Space Base. You've got 12 spaces, slots onto which you have a spaceship. And the idea is that you are a base in space that allows ships to dock, and you can send some of them off into the galaxy, and some of them can stay where you are, and the ones that stay there basically get you points. On your turn, you roll 2 dice, 2d6, and you can score them either individually or you can add them together to get a score. You'll get some points on one row of the cards. Everybody else gets points on anything that they've basically released into the universe. And they can do the same principle. They can score a 1 and a 3, or they can score a 4, for example. And during the game, you basically accumulate money. You can buy a new card, you can put that new card into the slot it represents and release the one that was there, and so on. You build your engine. So this is where the bit for Matchy Karoo comes in. You know, you basically buy, and every time you roll the 2 dice, you match something, and away you go. And it works mechanically well, but I found it being tedious, I'm not going to lie. Because you're completely at the mercy of the dice. So
yes.
if the dice don't come up and you've not got anything there, you're like, well, right, nothing for me here. Next.
Yeah, that's fair. But then, as the game, I think it was quite slow because a lot of people were learning it and agonising over which spaceships to pick to upgrade. I think once you got used to it and that bit happened faster, there wouldn't be so much downtime, which is probably what you found most frustrating. At least that's the impression you gave when we were playing it.
Because I'd already done everything before anyone had even thought about it. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, I found it boring. There just wasn't any. It wasn't fast enough. People were just, as you say, too slow.
So part of the problem was maybe that there was a 5-player game and we were quite spread out over the board, and it was easier, I think, for some people to read the cards based on where they were sat than others. Like, I had to stand up every time, and then I could see the cards at the other end of the table.
That didn't help, I suppose. Yeah.
And they were the juicy cards, the ones that you needed to absorb a little bit more. Whereas you were sat next to them and you could read them all.
Well, there is that, yeah. Down the other end of the table, there were cards that we weren't going to touch until halfway through the game.
I also think, because you're engine building, you do still get to choose what cards come up. So if you felt like, certainly at the beginning of the game, when it's other people's turns, you don't have so many spaceships flipped over to get you the extra bonuses from them rolling dice. But as you pick more cards, you're flipping your spaceships over, which means on other people's turns, you're starting to get whatever ones you picked. So if you've chosen reasonably well, like you've got 3s and 4s in there, and 7s and 8s and that kind of stuff, it gives you a reasonable chance that something's going to come up more often. You can pick up cards that then allow you to shuffle those right and left, so you can steer them towards the ones that you want.
But again, it's the same problem the base box of Matchy Karoo has. Basically, if you go for 6, 7, and 8, you're going to win. Or at least you're more likely to win, because they're the most likely numbers. It's that simple. So I just stuck to 8, upgraded the shit out of that, and I was battering all of you until Dave got his God card and thrashed us.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, that combination.
Yeah, so part of the mechanics is there's little cards that you can actually charge up with little cubes, and once it's charged, so basically you score that card on your go, you can put a little cube on it, and then at any point you can essentially discharge it and produce its effect. Dave got this annoying combination where he could put a cube on pretty much anywhere on his board, then he could move it around, then he could put it, essentially if he got 3 of these things on one spot, he'd win the game. It literally said you win the game if you get all 3 of these 3 cubes on this one spot. So the combination of these 3 cards, basically, he just went bang, 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 done. He got to the point where if anyone rolled a 6, he would win the game.
And I rolled a 6.
Which is good engine building from his part, to get the combination of those cards, but it kind of felt a bit shit for the rest of us that we'd just gone, oh, okay.
Yeah, the win the game card, you have to roll a double 6 for it to come up normally on your turn. It's just the fact that we'd stupidly let him get the other card, which then let him just shove a charge right across his board and go, I'll just put this over here, thanks.
Indeed, nice. Yes. So whilst there was a bit of game mismanagement on our part, it felt a bit meh. Because I'd started building and basically took advantage of the statistics. You know, every time somebody rolled an 8, I got 4 money and a point. And I just happened to be sort of jumping up the track and blum, 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 blum. Bought a 10-pointer, locked out my number 8, so it'd always get those points, and it gave me a bonus. And then, yeah, obviously the end of the game happened, which, you know, is fine. But it just, to me, felt there wasn't really much there.
When this was shown to me, one of the reasons why I wasn't too bothered about it is when it was shown to me at UK Games Expo, I just kind of went, isn't this just Matchy Karoo? And the guy went, it's a bit better.
I agree with that statement, actually. I think if somebody put the 2 in front of me and said, right, you have to play one of these 2 games, I would probably go with Space Base.
Okay.
It is a bit more interesting and a little bit more thinky than the base box, certainly, of Machikoro, because the base box of Machikoro is broken, but it needs the harbour expansion.
Yeah.
But it's not much more complicated than that. They're very similar.
Okay.
I'd be interested to play it again before I buy it. I'm still tempted.
Oh, okay.
But I want to feel like I've played it again with someone less cynical.
You played it with me, other less cynical players. Kaz seemed to enjoy it, I think, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, yeah.
Yeah. I think Dave did, obviously, because he won, but in fact, he seemed to find it all right. And I don't think Alora hated it either, but to me, it was just, I was at the mercy of the dice, and as you well know, I hate that situation.
Yeah.
Mm.
Speaking of games in which it would be a really stupid idea to allow one person to have really good combinations of cards.
Yes.
One other game that we played, several of us for the first time, was Blood Rage.
Blood Rage!
Ah!
Right, I feel better now.
Okay. Yeah, I remember distinctly saying when I was explaining the rules to this game, here are some basic strategy tips. Don't let anyone get all 3 Loki cards.
You did say
Who
that.
had all 3 Loki cards?
Hurrah!
Yeah.
When you said that, I took that to mean step number 1, collect all the Loki cards.
Yeah, I took that as well. Go for it. Go. And I got none of the bastards.
Yeah. So the first turn and the first time that we handed these hands round, Dave handed me the Loki card, and I was like, "Hello, I better hold on to that then." And the second round, I started with the second Loki card, and in the final round, I started with the third Loki card, and I was like, "Well, this all turned out nice again."
Yes.
So for those who haven't played Blood Rage is like an area control kind of scrappy game where you're playing Vikings. And what happens is anyone that dies goes to Valhalla. And Loki basically just gets victory points for things in Valhalla.
Yeah.
So basically, you get victory points for going into a fight and losing.
Yeah.
And John got a lot of points that
Yes,
way.
yes. It was something like 70 points you got on the last round, literally just the last thing we calculated. It wasn't even the last round; it was the last bit of the last round. It got
54 points, I think.
54. There you go. That was
But
quite
it was
a
hefty.
lot. That was about a third of your points, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it was literally just area control, card drafting, dudes on a map, Eric Lang stuff. I didn't hate it, actually. I kind of enjoyed it.
I think it's a good game, but if you're not ready for an Eric Lang game, it can be annoying because it's almost purposely unbalanced. Someone who wants a perfectly balanced game, go play Terra Mystica, because you are not going to get that experience out of this. This is a game in which there are cards which are overpowered, and the idea is you as players have to prevent this from happening. I mean, I'd say that's worse in Rising Sun, which is kind of sequel game. Because that game, there are some seriously powerful cards, and in that game, you're actually encouraged to make alliances to try and stop other players from doing things.
Okay.
But yeah, with the drafting, the whole point of the drafting is there's certain combinations which are powerful, and I think it's one of those games which is better when you know the cards better as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you can kind of go, hang on, so Andy's sitting next to me, he's got one of the Loki cards, I best make sure he doesn't get this Loki card. Or you might have one of the other cards which you know combos well and go, I don't really want to give him that if I can help it.
Frost Giant card. You went, oh, that's powerful, but it's very expensive. I'll pass it to Andy. And he goes, oh, I'm having that.
I really enjoyed the game. It did remind me of Rising Sun. So in that game, there is another similar mechanic where you get, if you collect the right combination of things, you get a lot of points. If you actually allow your guys to lose in battles, you basically fall on your sword and it's suddenly beneficial. You get loads more honour for doing it. So basically, I won that game as well for the same reason. I randomly ended up with a particularly good selection of cards and then just spanked them.
Yes.
Yes, let's enter into a battle. Kill me now.
Here is my sword, I will now fall upon it. I have to admit, it reminded me, actually, of Inish.
Now, you're not the first person to say that.
And I have to admit, I think Inish is better.
You're not the first person to say that either.
I didn't think I would be.
I think, again, it's that whole thing of, if you'd equate it to, say, a movie, the Eric Lang games and Simon are basically your blockbuster, with there's explosions everywhere, there's big CGI going on, whereas like your kind of Inish is a bit more medium, it's a bit more tempered, similar kind of theme kind of thing. And then something like Terra Mystica is your indie art house, a bit more thinky,
4 people
a bit more
in the
relaxed,
theatre
not
in
quite
France.
as flashy. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, I think Inish is a better game. It's more balanced for a start, because everyone is going from the same pool, and the game is a little less, I suppose intense. Probably not the wrong word, but there's a bit more. It's a bit more considered. It just seems a bit smoother and tighter, whereas Blood Rage seemed. The main was very pretty and it worked well enough. I'd play it again quite happily, but I think Inish is tighter.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think there's playing to a different market, if that makes sense. And I do like area control dudes on a map game, so I can quite happily have several of these games in my collection and think that I need to keep them.
You can live with that.
Yes.
He says, looking at Rex, going. See, you were just talking about New Angeles. I'm looking at Rex on my shelf and thinking, am I going to play that again? Because Rex is kind of like halfway between something like Blood Rage and New Angeles. It's like area control with negotiation. And I love this game, but no one's going to play this ever with me.
Sounds quite good. I'd play that. That sounds awesome.
It's weird because you're negotiating over something you don't know. Like in New Angeles, you know what you're negotiating over. You can see that card that gives you the benefit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Rex, only one person knows what that card is.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yes, it is interesting. So only one person.
So can they black it then? Basically say, yeah, this is really powerful, and it's basically just a turd wrapped in chocolate.
They can, and it's got the alliances in it, similar to like Rising Sun. So they can go to their alliance person and go, you want that card, or don't bother bidding on that card. But it's supposed to be like you can't whisper and say it secretly, so everyone knows he's been told not to bid on that card, and you've got to try and work out, do I bid on this or not? And it's got the combat system from Scythe, where you bid.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, I'd say to be correct, Scythe has got the combat system from Rex and Dune, because that's where this is from. So you've got that whole, I'm going to bid, how many troops am I going to commit to this battle? And then you've got these little secret leaders, and someone around the table will know that your leader is a traitor and have the traitor card in their hand. And there's nothing worse than starting a fight and going, I'm going to win this one, going to win this one. Ha-ha, your leader's a traitor. Oh, damn it.
God damn it.
Nice.
But it suffers from the whole FFG kind of bloatedness, and you need to know the cards to win the game kind of thing.
Right, yeah, a bit like Fury Dracula.
Yeah, it can also be a game that can take an hour or 4 hours, depending on when the victory point conditions get.
Sure.
Anyway, I digress. I really like Blood Rage. That's kind of I've always been a bit swingy about Blood Rage, whether I like it or hate it. I think now I've understood the game more, I like it more.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to get an outing more often.
I didn't dislike it, and it was easy to play. Easy to pick up, straightforward, literally just pick a card, get on with it. Pick a card, get on with it, pass it on. Stop holding the chain up, get on with it, pick a card.
Why is everyone looking at me like that? Oh, it's my get right, sorry.
I remember Steve and I basically drafted our cards, and there's this backlog between you and Dave. Just go, will you stop passing me cards? Well, get on with it then.
I love the way it's card drafted. There's no reason to do anything in between. So in fact, you look at John, he's got 4 piles of cards sitting in front of him.
This is cute.
It was never 4 deep. It's like 3 at the worst.
But I would definitely play Blood Rage again, and the minis are fabulous. I mean, they're slightly vestigial, but they are very, very impressive.
Yeah, that game could be played with just tokens and maybe something for the monsters. I'll admit. You could do that game with coloured cubes and it would work exactly the same.
Yes. Same criticism of Rising Sun as well, isn't it? It looks beautiful, but it's just tokens on a map.
Yeah.
So, I think, gentlemen, we have to draw that to a close because we have waffled for longer than normal, and we normally waffle for a long time.
I would concur with that assessment.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, dear listener, for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you actually enjoyed what you've heard, we'd appreciate a review on iTunes or Stitcher or your podcast platform of choice. If you'd like to have a chat with us, we are available on Twitter. We are collectively available on @PolyhedronC, and I can direct anyone coming via that route to the correct person. If not, you can find us individually. I am at Wahofflemadenga.
I am at Sonic H with a 0.
I'm at John_Cage.
And we're also on Facebook on the Polyhedron Collider and the Board Game Geek Guild 2726.
If you like yourselves a bit of D&D, the Champions of Chance will be back this Thursday. Again, because of, well, various things. But, I mean, the great thing is you get more Champions of Chance. Awesome! So if you fancy a bit of D&D, bardy, hilarious, being destroyed by giant action, you can join us on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider. And the following day, that same video will be up in a nicer form on youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider. And you can also find all of the podcasts there as well.
You know what, actually? This could work out, John, that you get your character killed twice in the same week, because then there's Monday night, which you're in deep shit in as well.
Yes, entirely possible. In fact, maybe I better roll a second spare character. There goes my night's sleep.
It's going to be interesting tomorrow night's session. It definitely is.
The Bard has some plans. They're probably not going to work.
It looks like the DM has some plans as well, by the look on his face.
Well, I've inadvertently made him aware of some aspects of those plans, so I've got a horrible feeling he's planned some nasty demise for when it goes badly wrong. We shall see.
We'll see. I just, I was quite interested. When you double check the book sometimes as a DM, you just try and make sure you're not doing things wrong. It's like, oh, no. It's actually, it does say it's extremely difficult to talk the way out of this situation. So, yes, they're humped.
Yep. I'm kind of looking at mine thinking, yeah.
I'm warming the dice up, ready for tomorrow. Ready for some D&D. But in the meantime, tatty bye and thanks for listening.
Ta-ra!
Catch you later.